Have you ever felt like being overly invested in a man has actually made your relationships harder and more painful? Well, what if I told you it's actually possible to avoid a lot of that unnecessary pain while also being more attracted to the men that you're dating? If that doesn't make sense to you, how that's even possible, don't worry. Join me on today's show where we'll be discussing how to detach so men fall in love with you. That way you can be at emotional peace while the men choose you instead of being in a place of agony and desperation for the men who are ignoring you. Whenever you meet men, and you go on a first, a second, or even a third date with them, you're more likely to see a lot of the good traits about them. So the fact that he's kind, the fact that he's friendly, and all of these other traits and so on and so forth that you may see from a man that you're dating. Now, this is good. This is great. I want you to see those things from the men that you're dating. But what you have to understand is that when you go out on these dates, these men that you're on a date with actually have a goal in mind, which is to be with you or to be attractive to you. And in order for them to be attractive to you, it's very important that they also present themselves in a very particular way and a very particular light so that you can be the most attracted to them as you possibly can. Why? Because if they make the mistake of not doing that, then you might choose to not allow them to jackrabbit themselves inside of you, okay? I'm trying to break it down real simple for you so you can kind of understand these concepts and motivations. So men are motivated by the fact that they know if you're attracted to them, you like their traits, you like their vibe and their energy, that you're more likely to allow them to come into you and come inside you, both figuratively and literally, okay? Now, but here's the other thing that I want you to understand. As many good traits as any human being can have, they will also have bad traits. So maybe they're extremely jealous, okay? A lot of times, when you go out on dates with guys and you're meeting them, and in the process of getting to know them, you're seeing a lot of these traits about men. But the problem is these traits of men also exist. Now, that's not necessarily means that he's a bad person or means that he's necessarily trying to pull the wool over your eyes, but I want you to understand that when you date men, you have to date men with the understanding that they also have goals. And their goals are to present themselves in the best positive light so that you will like and be attracted to them, that they will get the best opportunity to be able to sleep with you. Let's just be so for real. And if they make the mistake of showing themselves in too many of these bad traits too early on, it will become too obvious to you that you should not sleep with him, and you'll make a decision to not choose him or allow him to get access to you unless you really like walking red flags. I know some of you that turns you on. So you detach yourself from the idea that, oh my God, this is going to be my perfect, amazing man and my perfect, amazing relationship just because these first few dates are going well. Doesn't mean you anticipate things going wrong. You just have an understanding that while things are going good now, there is always more to learn. And there is definitely still more to learn when we're only in our first couple of dates, we're only in our first couple of months, and I'm seeing a lot of good things from you, but I want to allow myself to experience you in totality and experience different sides of you and different situations that we can be in our relationship before I make an assumption of who you really are. So you detach yourself from the feeling that someone is all you'll know about them in the first couple of days, weeks, or even months. Okay, we're gonna have a little bit of fun in point number 2, or so I need you to participate. So let's imagine a scenario in which you go to a Chanel store, okay? And you're looking through the Chanel store, you know what the usual price of things will be at the Chanel store. The Chanel Classic Flap is the one that you see at the store, okay? That's the big girl bag that you see a lot of those celebrities with, right? So that's the one that you see at the store. You pick it up, you're looking at it, and you're like, interesting, you know, cool, nice little bag, cool, nice little stitching. I see the gold accents, and you see the price of the bag there, sitting there, is $10,000. And you're looking at the bag, and you're like, you know, it's a nice bag, it's a nice style, but I don't really think it's worth $10,000. So you take the bag and you go up to the front desk and you go up to the saleswoman and you tell her, look, saleswoman, you work at Chanel. And I know you've been working here for many years, but I'm just here to tell you something you probably didn't know or realize. You see, you have a Chanel bag, a Chanel classic flap, like you guys said, on your rack, priced at $10,000. But I'm here to tell you that I've analyzed the quilting and the stitching. I've analyzed the craftsmanship, the weight, and the fact of how usable or reusable or resellable it is. And I'm here to tell you that I don't think this bag is worth $10,000. I actually think that this bag here is only worth $5. So I'm going to tell you that in this store here, I'm not paying you $10,000 for this bag. I'll pay you $5 because that's what I think the real value of this bag is. Tell me in the chat, how do you think the salesperson would respond to you? Because there's a very important lesson here, even though that this is a funny, comical scenario. Because this is the thing. You have to understand with value, sometimes you as a woman might end up placing a lot of your own personal value on what other guys think of you and how they choose to treat you, or in some cases, mistreat you. And you'll start to think of yourself as either more attractive, more desirable if a man chooses to treat you right, or less attractive and less desirable if a man chooses to treat you wrong. But here's the problem with that. Because as time goes on, you might listen to my show or other people's show and say, okay, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going to have self-respect. I'm going to walk with confidence. And then you meet a guy and you like his vibe and you like his style and you think he's sexy and he's tall and he's handsome. And then you apply all of those things like your confidence and your self-respect and your boundaries. And he's like, oh, no, I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for someone who I can use and take advantage of. And he walks away from you. Then you start to think to yourself, well, I did all of those things that are supposed to make me valuable, that are supposed to make me attractive, that are supposed to make me desirable to men. But because I didn't get the response I wanted from one man or a couple of men, that means that my value is actually not where I think it is. And I need to now make sure that I do what they want me to do, which is be easy, which is be available, which is answer their calls and texts whenever they want, which is pull up on them ASAP, and all the other things that they'll say, oh, I actually want a girl who's easygoing, who's peaceful, who won't say anything, who won't speak up for herself. I don't need a girl who says no and sets boundaries and blah, blah, blah. And you might start thinking to yourself, because you attach all of your value to how the men choose to treat you or mistreat you, to whether or not a guy likes you or whether or not you are attractive or valuable. And so because of that, you start to change or adjust your behavior every time you don't get the exact response you want from men. But what I want you to detach yourself from is feeling like you either have less or more value if men choose to treat you good or treat you bad. Because you have to understand that for the men, they will come into your life with their own motives, which is actually why we had number one is men have their own goals. They have their own goals of what they want out of you and out of this relationship and a relationship in general. And some men will be at a place in their life that when they approach you or when they're talking to you, they're not at all focused on being in a relationship with anyone. Not just you, anyone. And they're not at all in a place where they're able to be responsible, financially responsible, capable, have resources, or have the mindset or approach to be able to actually get into a long-term serious relationship. And because they're not in that state in their life, when they approach you or when they start talking to you, they mistreat you, or they don't take the relationship seriously, or they just confuse you. And you start to think to yourself, well, that's a reflection of me and my value. No, it's not. It's a reflection of how he chose to treat you based on whatever was going on with him. And once you understand what actually makes you valuable, which is your ability to say no, set boundaries, have self-respect, walk with confidence, right? And some men will be attracted to that because they're serious about dating and serious about a relationship. And some men will be repulsed by that, not because you're repulsive, but because they're not looking for a serious relationship, not looking for a serious partner, and they just want to mess around themselves. Then you understand that my value is not necessarily correlated to whether or not a guy chooses to treat me well. As long as I stay the course and keep my focus on these particular traits, presenting myself this particular way, I will always attract a man who is ready for a relationship and is serious about a relationship. Yes, I will also repel men and be unattractive to men who are not serious, but that's okay. And I want you to understand that that's also a necessary sacrifice in order to get the type of relationship that I'm assuming you're looking for. Number 3 is really about outcomes. You might eventually date this person and actually become his girlfriend if a lot of things go right. That's good. If you make some bad decisions though, you might end up in the place where you're friends with benefits. That's not so good. You're probably going to end up in our Discord or asking me a private question at that point. You could also end up in a place where maybe you just realize that this isn't working out. You guys have fights, arguments, or disagreements, and you end up in a breakup, okay? So all of these things are real possibilities, really paths and options that could happen whenever you meet a man or start dating a man. But what I want you to actually detach yourself from is the idea that he has to be anyone in particular in your life when you first meet him. This is what I mean by that. And I know this is going to sound a little bit strange. See, most of you, when you start dating a man, are going to have a desire to go up into this path here, to go and eventually become his girlfriend, right? It's not unnatural. You're not going to date men and say to yourself, yeah, I want to date you and I really, really don't want to be your girlfriend, right? You want the guy that you like to like you. That's not unnatural. But what ends up happening is as time goes on and you're starting to become frustrated and unclear about things and confused about things, you might say to yourself, I really, really, really wanted so badly to be your girlfriend. And I really, really, really envision myself being with you because of how amazing I think you are and because of how many ideas and fantasies and stories that I played in my mind of me and you, or looking at the stars and me and you spending time together and cuddling and you jackrabbiting yourself inside of me. And all of that, right, has built you up to be attached to the outcome of becoming his girlfriend. But this is actually a problem for you because now that you're in a situation, you're not the woman, right? And so you need him to be on board with this pathway as well. So if he's not on board with the idea of making you his girlfriend, no matter how much you kick and scream, you're never actually going to see this result, this outcome. But the thing is, if you still have a desire to feel like this is a possibility, you'll find yourself taking this path over here to end up more as a friends with benefits so you can feel just close enough to being his girlfriend, right? But because you are so desperate to see this outcome and you so badly believe that this would be the outcome of your relationship with this guy, you're willing to allow this outcome to be possible so that you can feel very close to this one. But that's a mistake. And the mistake comes from having some sort of expectation that the guy you just met, because remember, the guy you just met, you don't really know. And they have so many things that you have to learn about him. When you just meet him and you're starting to date him, you don't want to attach yourself that this is going to be my boyfriend. This is going to be the man I marry. I'm not saying when you date men, you can't enjoy the time that you spend with them. I'm not even saying that as things are going well, you can't acknowledge that things are going well. But what I want you to do is detach yourself from the idea that this is some sort of perfect man that is coming and bestowed upon me to solve all my problems. Why? Because you're evaluating on a daily basis, and we're going to talk about evaluation in a bit. You're evaluating on a constant basis, is he showing up for me how I expect a partner to show up for me? And if the answer to that question is no, I don't care what my attachment is or how badly I want a boyfriend. I'm not going to be here as long as he's not showing up for me how I expect a man who I'm going to make my husband and is going to be my husband to show up for me. Disappointment will always come in life. That's okay. What you want to understand is in your dating life, you're always going to come across a plethora of different kinds of men. Some will be good men, some will be bad men. There'll be some men who are tall, some short, maybe you don't like short guys, some muscular, some skinny, all different types of men, okay? Some big dogs, some soy boys. What you want to understand is when you meet a guy and you start liking a guy and things are going good and I want them to go good for you, understand you have a very particular type of man that you're ultimately looking for, who is going to be, I guess we can call it in this sense, the man of your dreams. And this man will embody all of the qualities and character traits of the type of guy that you're looking for. He will also treat you the way that you expect to be treated in a long-term, serious relationship. That's great. But you have to understand, in the process of eventually finding this man of your dreams that has all of those qualities and character traits, he's tall with a big schlong, he can penetrate you, D you down, all of that good stuff that you want. You also, unfortunately, will also find some garbage men. And some of the men that you meet, at some point in the process of you talking to them and getting to know them, you might actually think that one of these garbage men is the man of your dreams. Until, unfortunately, you get to know him a little bit more and you realize he's not the man of your dreams. He's actually one of these garbage men. What I want you to detach yourself from is the idea that no man that you ever meet or believe in or start to like or like spending time with is ever going to disappoint you. This is probably the most saddest one. That's going to sound the most sadistic here, because of I'm saying that, hey, some guys that you like, some guys that you spend time with, they're going to lie to you. They're going to, cheat. They're going to disappoint you and things like that. The truth of the matter is you can't control how people choose to treat you. And sometimes the people that you like and you invest your time in and you try to do as much right as you possibly can, they will still choose to treat you like garbage. But that's okay. All I want you to do is control what you can control. What does that mean? When you go out on your dates and you're here with me in the Players Club and you're learning all about men and understanding how to present yourself and understanding how to gather information, you control what you can control. Sometimes even when you do all that and you strategize and you approach it exactly as all the other creators and relationship coaches have advised you to approach it, sometimes you will meet men and they will still disappoint you after you believe in the idea that they are the man of your dreams. But that is okay. Everything that you experience when you date men is a learning lesson. Every time you go through, whether it be heartbreak, whether it, just be finding things out that you never thought were possible, realizing that a guy is not who you thought he was, all of that is good. Not in the sense that it's good that it happened to you. It's good because now that you have that experience, you're able to use that experience to take into the future of your relationships to eventually find this guy, okay? So the actual thing that I kind of want you to reshape your thinking, right, is that all of your experience with these garbage men, as strange as it will sound to you, all of the experience you have with these garbage men will actually make it possible to eventually find your dream man. Because whether you end up being with any of these garbage men or not, hopefully not, your experience with them and around them and in relationships with them will allow you to be able to better understand what you're looking for by also understanding what you're not looking for, and better experience what relationships are like, so you know what red flags to avoid, so you know what situations to avoid, so you also know how to analyze situations and analyze the men that you're going out with and dating, okay? All of this is good. But you allow men to show up for you how they choose to show up for you. Two very important things will happen when you do that. One, the men will be able to come to you and be able to say, hey, I want you. And because I want you, I'm going to take action on my desire for you and a desire to build a relationship with you, which is great because that allows you to be in your feminine. And then the number two thing that happens is you're not confused about what he wants this way, which also aids you in staying in your feminine energy. And this is actually part of the reason why, it's the main reason, why this makes you so much more attractive to men. Because when you can date men like this, not date garbage men, but when you can date men in a mind state like this, where you allow them to show up for you how they choose to show up for you, you actually don't end up being confused. You actually end up being very clear on what they feel and what they want, because you've given them the space to choose what they want to do and how they want to go about this and how they want to treat you. And when you join the Players Club and you're better able to decipher and decode all of those actions, then everything becomes very, very clear to you, whether he's the man of your dreams or whether he's one of those garbage men. You always want to be in a place where you are evaluating men. Based on what I need out of a man and out of a relationship, a serious one with a man, am I seeing the things that are necessary to be in a long-term relationship with a man and the type of man that I'm looking for? See, when you're in a place where you're living in a fantasy in your mind, what you're gonna do is you're gonna stop basing how you feel about a guy based on what he's actually done or hasn't done for you. Because when you're living in a fantasy, usually you're in that fantasy because you don't want to live in reality. Because if you were living in reality with the guy that you're with, it would be very obvious to you that you're wasting your time. However, being very meticulous about checking in with yourself and within your relationship of whether or not the guy that you like, because you like him a lot, is showing up for you in all of the different ways that you expected a man to show up for you. And actually, see, this is the thing that I should add here, right? Being able to have a clear, concise example for yourself to be able to, on an ongoing basis, remind yourself, hey, I was looking for a man who is respectful, okay? Not that that has to be him or that has to be anyone in particular, but I was looking for that. And on an ongoing basis, you need to remind yourself, do I have examples of him actually being that to me on a regular and consistent basis? Like, can I actually go back in my mind and actually think to myself, has he shown up for me in the way that I expect a man that I need in a serious relationship to show up for me? Not do I wish he would, or do I imagine that one day he could possibly be that? No. Has he actually been that for a consistent basis, right? Same thing here. If I know that I need a man who can stick to his word, so when he says he's going to do something with me or for me, he actually does that thing. Do I have real life examples in our relationship of him doing that? If my answer is no, or if I start fumbling and stumbling and saying, well, he's been busy, well, he's been doing this, well, no. Do you got examples of the things that you said you needed and him actually doing those things lately? Okay, I'm not talking him doing it 1 year ago or 3 years ago or 10 years ago. Has he done this for you lately? If you can't, off the top of your head, think of an example of recently, then it probably isn't very lately. And the reason that I say this is because this is part of the evaluation process that you must go through with any man that you're dating, and you cannot attach yourself to the idea that, hey, I like this guy a lot, so rather than actually looking for a constant evaluation, I'll just base how I go about this relationship or how long I allow myself to be in this relationship or invest here based on how good I feel about him and the vibes. Because the vibe will always feel to you like it's right to stay here if you feel like, I want to like this guy. Saying to yourself, I want to like this guy, so I'll like him because of how much I want to like him, is not actually going to help you in your relationships. And sometimes you can end up self-sabotaging your ability to find a good relationship because you choose men that you just want to like, rather than men that you can evaluate and really honestly tell yourself that, yeah, he's showing up for me how I expect a guy to show up for me. Choosing guys based on just the fact that you like them and they can fit your fantasy, right, doesn't necessarily mean that he's at all the guy that you're actually looking for or want in a relationship. And it doesn't actually necessarily mean that you're going to receive the treatment that you actually want or are looking for in a relationship. So on an ongoing basis, when you date men, regardless of who the man is, I don't care how nice his smile is, I don't care how long his schlong is, I don't care how deeply he penetrates you, I don't care how many gasms he gives you, okay? You're consistently gathering information and evaluating, is he who I'm looking for? I'm not just going to be in the business of liking guys just because I feel like liking guys. I want to like the guys who show up for me how I expect a guy to show up for me. And I detach myself from it being any one person. It just has to be the person that fits my criteria. And once that person shows up in my life, I will know that it's that person because they show up for me this way. There's a difference here between dating someone and saying, hey, I like you, so I want you to fit the mold of the things that I'm looking for, versus saying, I like anyone who will fit my qualities and character traits that I need in the man that I'm going to be with. Okay. I don't have a picture in my mind of who that's going to be. I don't have a picture in my mind of what they're going to look like or how tall they are or what country I'm going to meet them in. No, no, no. None of that matters. What matters is he going to show up for me in these ways? Does he have these qualities? Does he have these character traits, right? And I'm not saying that some of those can't be physical, like you want a guy who's tall or whatever the case may be. But what I'm saying is you don't want to attach yourself that, hey, it's this guy. I don't know him yet. I haven't really gotten to know him. I've only dated him for a couple of days, but I'm sure it's this guy because I want it to be this guy. No, no, no. When it's actually that guy, you're going to know it's that guy because every single one of these checkpoints, you'll be able to say, yeah, I wanted a guy who was respectful. He actually has been respectful. And there's an example of that because of when he did this and this and this. I wanted a guy who was going to stick to his word. I have examples of that from when he did this, this, and this. I wanted a guy who was going to be reliable. I have examples of that from when he did this, this, and this. And then that's how you know. After going through all of these different checkpoints that, oh my God, I've actually found the man of my dreams. Not because I wanted to or wanted it to be him, so to speak, right? It's because he actually met all of these different criteria that I had.